So hello, and welcome to our Dinis Guarda Cities ABC Open Business Council series. Again, to a fantastic interview that I'm looking for, and I wanted to do it for some time. So today I want to welcome Axel Angeli, that is joining us from Germany, and is someone that I know for a long time, that I really respect, and one of the world technologists and futurists that have been actually looking at the way technology works for a long time. So he has an impressive CV. I will just read some of the things before moving forward. So at the moment, Axel Angeli is the digital future evangelist for Industry 4.0, the founder of the 50 Experts Consulting Group, and director at Logosworld Technology and Research in Germany. So he's been in enterprise board level mentorship and international speaker in major conferences around the world for a long time, especially in the areas of evolution by design and artificial intelligence. Axel has been engaging in research and education on the concepts and areas of fourth industrial revolution, which in German is Industries 4.0, design paradigms and emergent countries, with the aim to build areas like holistic zero waste ecosystems for smart living, wildlife, and agriculture. And as well, agriculture 4.0, which is a new concept that is right now emerging. Angela has been as well working a lot with emerging markets like India, where he has a massive footprint, but as well in Africa. And as well, has been gaining international recognition as a SAP guru. But behind this has been as well working in ultra large distributed cloud and as well artificial intelligence since 1984, which was in the early days of things were not still so hype as they are now. And Axel has been as well founded the School Time Friends with his management advisory Logosworld, and he's been writing and speaking and consulting and a lot of areas of companies and enterprises to get best return on technology, optimization, and of course the related investment. So he's been working with the governments and companies, especially from Germany, Europe to emerging economies, and as well looking at opportunities and as well multiple case studies in India, China, Asia, Middle East, and Africa. So I think we can look as well, one of the things that I'm particularly interested to speak as well is the areas of education, especially business education, where Angel has been doing fantastic work in terms of looking at trends and looking at research, but as well aligning the rising technology main concepts and trends and all the different things and put it together in terms of business enterprise technologies and a lot of the things that we see right now as the most important thing for our business world and for our society. And as well, one of the projects that's been working, of course, is the areas of digital transformation and how to look at this in terms of the opportunities that can come for emerging economies and as well for major companies and countries worldwide. And as well, one of the last things that he has as well is that he's been creating the 50 experts, that is the consortium of actually 50 global experts, where actually they do research and a kind of a think tank in terms of supporting companies and organizing different areas. So welcome to our series, Axel. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you very much, Dinis, and thank you for having me and for this wonderful introduction. Well, so, looking forward to your question.
Me too. So I will start straight away. So Axel, being in German and as well having a very global footprint, I would like to hear a bit of your background and education, but especially how do you get into technology? How do you start in technology? Some of your education previously, and how did you build this kind of global footprint in technology, but as well as a futurist, so being always a bit a step ahead of things.
Well, that's an interesting question, how I came into technology, because when I was in school and I left school, my interest was primarily more into going something like psychology or medicine, since I was also during school time the one who was working with computers where the others didn't show the real interest in, and so I was building my own computers, my microcomputers. I was playing with the Commodore stuff, the Commodore PET, Commodore CBM, the Apple II computers. At this time, I got a lot of requests also to help out the people on the computing machinery. So I more or less worked with the computers, and then I decided to go to study mathematics. And as that was at this time in 1980, the groundwork if you wanted to go into computer science. Either you were studying electronics or you're going to study mathematics. And so it was clear for me that I'm going the mathematics trail. And from that on, I worked with computers permanently. So since 1979, I'm more or less always involved with computers, but my interest is really what you can do with computers and less how to build them.
So I'm particularly interested, so you come from Germany that has a strong engineering background, and as well is known mostly for industrial design and for the car industry and very heavy industries. But you went directly to computing, and as well you were in 1884 already in looking at the blocks in terms of actually AI and the areas of especially things related more to software and things like that. So can you tell us a bit about this background? Because Germany is actually one of the leading countries in innovation, but more in the areas really industrial, and then software is not so well known. So a bit of that background from the German education and German technology footprint to this global world that is right now dominated by software and by platforms in cloud computing and data and so forth.
Well, I think this has many aspects. Well, Germany is known for what they call quality and for their technology expertise. And the reason is definitely in this century-old education system, which was built on the strict respect of the education procedures given by the guilds, and that the guilds of different professions had very, very similar ways of educating. And that led to a situation that for 300-400 years, if you learned to be a baker, you could immediately also become a carpenter, or a carpenter could be a chimney cleaner, or so, because the basics, what all craftsmen learn, are very, very, very similar. So this is one of the reasons why Germany is performing relatively well when it comes to engineering, because you can talk to practically everybody who is who learned a profession and retrain him to do something else. And that is very, very important if you go for innovation, because innovation means change. And if you have people who you don't need to retrain in a long run, but whom you simply say, okay, you did it like this yesterday, now you have to do it a little bit different tomorrow, then it's very easy to accelerate innovation in the future. So that is one of the reasons I think why engineering is very, very strong especially in the German-speaking countries. Of course, you can also take it a different way. In school, we already learned that engineering is strong in all countries where you have a history of war. And this is definitely also somehow true. And if you go to countries where mostly commerce and agriculture is dominating, precision and innovation is less on the agenda. That is what you also can take it away. But Germany is definitely used to be good in engineering, and And now Germany can only be engineers anymore because Germany is a dying out country. Since 1964, we had no population growth at all, and we only keep the number of 82 million inhabitants in Germany just because we are taking people from other countries who migrate to Germany and take over a lot of the jobs.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I'm particularly interested on that because, of course, that probably as part of your personality that is very scientific and very innovation driven, but as well very conscious of that architecture and industrial capacity. But then you went to much more advanced areas that are not so well known from Germany. Germany is, like you mentioned, industrial design is known for IoT a bit and is known particularly for the car industries and the things like that. So how did you go to especially software and AI and as well cloud computing? That is some of the areas where you are a global recognized leader.
Well, there was at this time when I started going to profession in '84, that was more or less a logical path. Since I was started my career in computer science in hospitals, in the medical sciences, so that is what we call the medical computer sciences. And they were one of the biggest customers for computer usage, because if you do clinical trials, if you do studies on research on diseases, you are going to collect a lot of data, and this data needs to be sorted, filtered, and calculated according statistical methods. And that is what a computer was very good in at this time. So at this time when we started working with, today we call it big data, this time we called it data mining, and trying to make conclusions out of the data. And the path to artificial intelligence is relatively natural at this time, because artificial intelligence is not what some people immediately come to their mind due to some maybe Hollywood movies like Spielberg's AI or so, where you have a humanoid robot who really pretends to be a human. Artificial intelligence, what we speak today, is what we call weak AI, and this means we are using the computer to enhance the deficits of the brain of the human. So if originally the computer was already like this, a computer could calculate faster, he could do the bookkeeping faster than the humans could do. And in future, the AI is simply there to analyze data faster, quicker, and more precise, and than a human or even a collection of humans could do. And already in the 1980s, we saw we need computers who can go through the data and give us some indications what this data could mean. So if you have a lot of data of people, and if you have a new drug, now, well, today we have this discussion about the vaccines, and you have the vaccines and you want to find out if this vaccines has side effects. Then if we have a computer who is going to calculate the data from left to right, from top to down, then we can find the side effects by looking for certain patterns in the data. And that was the use case of AI in the 1980s, and was the use case of AI today. And the second use case is also in the 1980s, born in the 1980s, even a little bit earlier, and that is the topic of vision. So if you have a lot of X-rays and you want to see what's on this X-ray, if you're a human and you look on 1,000 X-rays in a day, you get tired. And the computer is not going to get tired, but if you have an algorithm who can look for certain anomalies in the X-ray, then it is a big help in finding out if a person is sick or not. So that is how everything came also with the artificial intelligence. It came out first from data mining, from big data processing, and artificial intelligence comes out naturally as the wish. We want a computer to do all these boring, repetitive, or tiring tasks for us to get better and more precise and repetitive results.
Completely. So in terms of the work you've been doing and I think your career, can you tell us a bit of a background? Some of so you've been having in a career that has both from public speaking, a lot of education, as well working with SAP and a lot of other organizations. So these are some highlights of the career so far.
Yeah, okay, let's keep it short, otherwise the next 2 hours will gone. So no, but the let's say I had let's say every 10 years I changed a little bit the way how my career is shaping. So in the 1980s I was mostly working with the medical computer sciences, with the hospitals, trying to make picture recognition on X-rays and this data mining, what I just mentioned before. And then I had a colleague from Bulgaria who opened a robot manufacturing in California. And he was a very good mechanical engineer, but his electronics was relatively lousy. And the electronics he bought from third party was also not very good. So we started to develop software to control these robots, that was motion controllers. The concept was very similar to what you find in cars today, what is called anti-blocking system, where we were writing the software to get robots who could really repositioning precision of 50 microns, which is very, very precise. And these robots are still used today in manufacturing computer chips and silicon treatments. So that was my, then we went in these robots, and then in around 93, 94, the big hype on SAP started. So SAP became the whirlwind in the industry. Everybody wanted to have ERP systems, and so I went there, and first as a developer and technical mentor to help especially build the connection between SAP systems and non-SAP systems. And so that was there. And after the year 2000, the hype diminished rapidly. And then I took my knowledge on integrating SAP with non-SAP systems, with all kinds of industry systems, and concentrated very much on what was called by then the service-oriented architecture, the SOA, and evangelizing especially the concept of enterprise service bus. So, and with the enterprise service bus things, so that is when I started around 2002 to go from conference to conference and to evangelize really the concept, to explain to people what SOA is, what an enterprise service bus is, what the benefit is, how to have to restructure your IT. So that was the period of enterprise service bus, and in the 2010 years, then the Industry 4.0 topic started to take momentum. Officially released, I think it was in 2011, by the German government. The Industry 4.0 design concept was done by this time by Henning Kagermann, the former head of SAP, and since then I try to explain, especially to industry leaders, or let's say the decision makers in industries, how they can benefit from Industry 4.0, or in other words, from using weak artificial intelligence in improving their work and their tasks. And yeah, and now we are entering the next decade, and since Industry 4.0 for manufacturing, for automotive, this is quite standard today. The big ones have adopted it as what they anyway use, but there are other areas where Industry 4.0 has to take a bigger momentum, and the biggest one in the world is definitely the biggest market and the biggest innovation driver, and this is agriculture 4.0, and of course also healthcare 4.0, and smart living that includes also environment protection, all these things. But agriculture, I think that will be the one who is going to set the trend. Healthcare is anyway going in parallel, but mostly driven by the big pharmaceutical and health science companies. But agriculture, that is, well, you literally said a grassroots activity that has to be done. So you start really from the grassroots and build in technology to improve the yield and the better living and also the education of the people. And we are not talking about Europe and the US where the old people are living. We are talking about continents like Africa where the median is somehow around 22-year-old, and India where 28 is the median, and not like in Germany where the people are 48 years in the median. So half of the German population is 48 years and older.
Fantastic overview, both in your career, but as well with developments of technology. So I want to stay a bit more on the Industry 4.0 that actually generated then the other concept of fourth industrial revolution. That was a bit larger in the scope, whereas the Industry 4.0 in Germany was initially very focused, like you mentioned, in terms of creating a revolution, in terms of creating a new solutions for the industry, especially initially, like you mentioned, more for the big industries, but then it became for all areas of society. So have you been, well, being you, a personality that has been on the inception of all these different technologies, and you saw this as well from a developing perspective and from the way things have been happening, and some of them you've been part actually of creating it as well. Do you want to I would like just to hear your views on how do you see these developments and as well how this is affecting society at large, because I think it's an important thing as well for everyone listening to us and as well understanding the challenges that are coming out of this.
What do you mean with a factoring society? I'm not 100% sure if I understand.
Affecting society.
Oh, affecting
so because as you can, yeah, because as you saw, especially as we become, let's say, you've been a technologist for all your life, but in the last 20 years, technology came from initially a couple of corporations leading these, initially big corporations, to become an entire faction that touches all society. And now we have the fourth industrial revolution, which is much larger. It comes from the World Economic Forum founder book and research, which is different slightly from the Industry 4.0. So I would like to touch that. How do you see this evolution? And as well the good and bad things that came out of this.
Okay, not sure if you deliberately just made this flap now because you said it's an evolution, and because that it is. It's an evolution, it's not a revolution. That is wrong with when we speak about Industrial Revolution 4.0. It is the revolution happens only sometimes in the society, but since we are anyway a technology society for centuries now, the transformation into technology will be much smarter, much smoother. Just think, in the year 2006, how did your iPhone look like? It did not look, because there was no iPhone, there was no smartphone. Yes. The Nokia, the one which you could open like a case for glasses, and then you saw the keyboard and then you saw the screen. That was the latest chick, and this is only 14 years ago. And think of how many emails did you send in the year 1995? Probably most of you, none. There was no email system that was used by some universities and some big companies. They had something where they could exchange electronic emails. But then in 1995, it started that the people started to get email addresses. And now it is absolutely normal. If you don't have an email address, you do not exist in this world. So, and that's, but everything did not go as a revolution. It just came. So every year we look, oh, what is new? And the people are used to adopt. So they're looking for the new things. And they see technology now not as a disruptive breaker in the society, but actually, they say, as helpers. So, okay, I do something that I don't like to do. Can I have a computer who helps me to do the job? Let me see extreme. If you go in the agriculture things, if I look at agriculture and look at the young people in Africa or India, wherever you have people-rich countries, then you ask the people what they want to be in future. I tell them there is a lot of jobs in agriculture. You can become a farmer. And they say, oh no, don't want to be a farmer. I want to be a computer engineer. Okay, yeah, say, okay, computer engineer. But if you only have computer engineer, there's nobody producing the food. But actually, I can take the computer engineers now and say, okay, come on, you become a computer engineer and let's design a robot, a drone or a driving robot or some wonderful tool. And I give you a remote control and then you can control the drone and the drone is doing the harvesting for you. In the end, you get the food picked and you get the seeds into the soil, and the young people are happy because they can call themselves computer engineers, but in the end they are farmers. They have just a tool. It is not something really surprising, something new. If I look back in the 17th century, there was a famous man. Most people nowadays know the name of this man, but not because of his deeds, but just because of his name, and it was Jethro Tull. Jethro Tull is, of course, a music band, but that is not what we're talking about. Jethro Tull was an economic revolutionist. He invented the seed drill. That was a machine that was able to put the seeds into the soil in exact right distance so that the plants could grow efficiently. If you put seeds in the soil, if you put them too close to each other, then they will disturb each other, so the plants will not grow big enough. If you put them too wide, then you're wasting the space what you have. So there is always an optimum how you put in the seeds and how deep they are drilled into the soil and how much sand has to be put on top of it. So this Jethro Tull, this man invented a machine who could do this for the farmers. So they put the ox in front of the seed drill, and then they were drilling the seeds exactly the way how they needed it. So this is the invention of Jethro Tull. But if you look at Jethro Tull, not alone, if you look 4,000 or 6,000 years back, the first industrial revolution, that was the invention of the plow. That was when the people could take their animals, their oxes and their donkeys and their horses to pull the plow and to get the earth better transformed in a way so that yield could rise. So that is the thought behind. So technology will help us to have a better future. It will help us to educate the young people, give them employment because they can do something what they're like to do because they want to be part of the social systems. At the same time, we have simply to drive them into a way that they also do something that help us in alimentation, in feeding the people, and it will not be a revolution like it was when the steam engine came, when every worker was taken more or less as a slave of the industrialists. No, now the young people will come themselves and say, hey, okay, this technology is from yesterday, I need more. I need something new. You see, like with WhatsApp. Now everybody says, okay, WhatsApp was yesterday, now we want to have Telegram or Signal.
Completely. So I want to touch, so you touch about agriculture, and I think this is a big thing because we all dependent of that. And of course, the industry, the agriculture has been probably one of the first well, actually, there was the agricultural revolution, actually, if you look at history, and it was one of the first things that aggregates societies and that create the capacity for human to go a bit further. So as a futurist, you are right now very focused in agriculture 4.0. So I would like you to define the concept, and as well, how do you see the future of agriculture and the work that you've been doing in that area?
Well, let me give an explanation why I'm concentrating on agriculture. Well, I'm not saying, okay, we have to do agriculture just because that is the latest chic. The other way around is true. Agriculture is a necessity for the big continents like Africa. Africa has from population now 1.3 billion people, so approximately the same population than India has. And so if you want to feed all these young people and also give them jobs, you have to start with the agriculture, because if you're not able to produce more food for these people, then we will end up in a big misery. So, but the structure, especially the young people, they will need help. So the help they can have either by importing people from the industrial countries in Europe or in the USA, or they can do it by finding ways to learn and help technology to improve their work. An example, how can it work? Let's say you want to fight a pest on your field. I have the example, if you have a vineyard, one of the biggest enemies of wine is a snail. The snails come, they eat the vineyard, the wine sticks, and then you will have no longer any wine. Now you can, of course, the farmer asks, what can I do? Is there any chemicals? Is there any pesticide? Is there, what can I do to avoid that the snails are eating my yield? In past times, you would have probably gone to some older farmer, asked your grandfather or some other older farmer or the eldest in the village, what can I do against the snails? And he would have said, you do this or this and this. Now, every farmer does something different. He goes in there in the internet, he goes in Google and says, how can I kill the snails in my vineyard? And the Google will tell him, okay, you can buy some chemicals from Monsanto, you can buy, go there and pick them and eat them as a nice dinner yourself. Or it will give you another idea, say, okay, you just go to hire some ducks and send the ducks through the vineyard, and the ducks will eat all the snails. Within 2 days, there will be no snails anymore in your in your vineyard. So the idea is this: we use the technology to get more speed and to get better information and reliable information. The same is also if you want to do fertilizers on the field. The biggest problem for farmers with fertilizers is that they are having trouble to find the right amount. So fertilizer is expensive, but if you have too much fertilizers, it's also a problem that if you want to sell the food in the world, the customers won't accept it. They look for the fertilizer and say, okay, this is poison, we don't want it. They all want to have organic. Bio is the word, especially if you come to Germany, everything is bio now, or in France also, everything is bio. And so that is what you want to have. So what you can do with Agriculture 4.0, now you have drones, you send out the drones take some probes from the soil. There's a little lab already in the robot or in the drone who measures it, who makes an analysis and send out, okay, I have so much fertilizers found on the fields, so you only have to put in the delta, the difference. So they are going, and you can even take this by small parcels differently. So okay, on acre 1, I have to put so much fertilizers. On acre 2, I can do something a little bit different, and this. And it's because the knowledge that is stored into the big data systems, this artificial intelligence will measure the data and look up the solution for you, and it will give you a prescription. according to the classical principle of the artificial intelligence is you first do an analysis. So you make some probes, then you do a diagnosis, find out what the data mean. Then you do a prediction, what will happen if you continue the status. And in the end, the computer looks for a prescription. So this is stage number 4. And if all these things are done just in a small robot, then the farmer can just send out the robot and say, hey, look out, what fertilizers do I need? And if you have small little robots, sometimes the robot can even have already the fertilizer in the trunk and just put the fertilizers directly on the field, but exactly the amount of fertilizer that is needed for the difference. This happens in the big acres and fields in the United States or in Australia, where you have gigantic fields. That happens there already, but this is the idea behind. And in Africa or in India, it will go that way. The young people, they will be there, look at the local problems, and they are meant to invent something. And when they invent something, they can do something very good, not only for themselves, but also for the world.
Fantastic. And I think it's a massive right now industry, and as well a new area, especially the relationship with AI and all different things. So I want to touch, so you have 2 organizations and companies that you've been working that are particular representative. One is 50 Experts Consulting Group, and the other one is Logosworld Technology and Research. So can you tell us about the companies? Because in the case of 50 Experts is an organization, and Logosworld is more technology. So I would like to hear about both of them.
Well, Logosworld is my own company. That is the one that exists since 1984, and this is management consulting, and with a strong focus on SAP, not because we wanted to be an SAP company, but that is what the market demanded. So we were simply there and concentrated where the biggest money flew in, and that was doing SAP consulting. But at the same time, with Logosworld, we do also consulting for enterprise service bus technology, for service-oriented architectures, and any kind of IT restructuring, like carve-outs, rollouts. Carve-outs are very in fashion now because many companies selling their departments, and so that is what we are doing with the Logosworld one. The 50 Experts Consortium is meant to be a pure management consulting think tank and thought leader organizations. So with the 50 experts, we only go and talk peer-to-peer to the management of companies who want to shape their own technology to be ready for the future. So that is our main idea behind it. So 50 experts, originally the idea was meant 50 experts over 50. So it's a silverback organization. So we wanted to have people who are very experienced there and can do some hand-holding to the younger decision makers in the company. So that was the main idea. And we are going out in conferences, we are going out to do consulting, and we are doing a little bit the job what originally the big, the top 10 in the industry consultings did, like KPMG, EY, Accenture, and all those McKinsey's. And since when it comes to next generation technology, they are a little bit helpless because they don't have the people who have the experience to drive the future. And we said, actually, well, this is the gap where we're going in, and we want to do something good for the future. So this is 50 experts, and Logosworld is simply a consulting company who does execution of the job. And behind 50 experts, all experts have their own consultancy or their own company behind. Some are operating a computer center, some are doing exactly also consulting, others are a programming shop. So they all have something behind that do things in reality, in practice, and not only in theory.
Fantastic. So just right now, moving forward, and I think looking at the work, so I'm particularly interested as with your long experience in, and as well expertise in data, and as well the different evolution of business and a lot of society working with governments. You've been looking at the challenges, and I'm sure at the moment there's increasingly challenges with data, cybersecurity, and all the areas of digital transformation and special AI, which is an area of your expertise. So how do you see this, especially as a technologist, as someone as well being teaching and coaching, but as well as a futurist? So I would like to look at this because there's so much ways of looking at this. There are people that are thinking there's a doomsday coming. There are people think, okay, let's just be practical and use this in the best way possible. But there's no, I think, no way we cannot just disregard the risks with the acceleration of technology that people like us, and especially technologists that have been, of course, pushing forward, but at the same time, it comes with a lot of risks. So I would like to hear your opinion on this.
So, well, I think I'm going to repeat a little bit myself on this one because I say since technology is a part of our daily life, we will not experience the changes. We will simply find when technology is no longer there that we are missing something. So if you don't have the internet, then the people are disappointed. And if the internet is not getting faster every year, they are disappointed. So the technology will help us to do our life smarter. And we will especially see things where the technology will also take away the burden of the less amusing or the more risky tasks. Think about smart cities or smart mobility. Today, everybody says, okay, I don't want to have that my car is driving itself. So no, I want to drive and I don't trust the computer to drive my car. But in the end, if you're in a city and all cars are robots, then it will increase safety because these robots, they concentrate on driving and nothing else. If a human driver, say, he concentrates a little bit on driving, but he concentrates also on his smartphone, and he concentrates on the radio because he doesn't like the tune, what he just found there, and or he is looking out of the window because he saw some nice lady in a mini rock. So, so there will be a lot of things where the human driver is not as concentrated as a robot will be, and especially in the cities when all the computers communicate with each other and all the cars are computers, then safety will be much, much higher than today. So we will use technology to increase the safety. It will also help us probably reducing unnecessary traffic, because then if you just can send your car to go to the parcel store, say, okay, bring me, buy me some, or to the supermarket, and just go there to the supermarket. I ordered online and send the car. Can you pick up my shopping? Then the car can also go there. So, but they will do it much more efficiently, and as many humans do. So that is one of the areas where we definitely see something where the technology is improving in the cities in there. And a lot of things that will happen will come from a practical use. So it will not be the big inventions or the big visions, what they say. No, it will be the things that really help the people to do some things. If, for example, if you think about of a flying car, then we dream from a flying car since I think 1960s. Walt Disney has done in Karl Barks has made Donald Duck and cartoons already with the flying cars in the 1960s. But that is something that will probably not come because it's not practical. It does not make much sense there. But cars who communicate with each other, that is something that will make sense. Also, the smart living, the smart cities, so that a lot of infrastructure will be ready in the next time. So if we build a smart city, then it's mainly about having the electronic plugs correctly, that I can do my internet communication, and that robot gives me really help on something. This, I'm not thinking about Alexa or such things. This is a nice gimmick from Amazon. It will certainly not survive for too long. But maybe a refrigerator who reminds me to fill himself up, not to do it himself, but only to remind me to fill the refrigerator. Or if I say I want to bake a cake tomorrow for the birthday of my mother, then the refrigerator tells me, okay, what cake? It's crumbled cake. Then I say, okay, you have everything but no apples. So first you have to go to buy apples, or do the other way around and say, what cake can I make with what I have? And it says, okay, you can make a chocolate tart, because for the chocolate tart, everything is already in the house. So these practical things, I think that is where the technology will give us a breakthrough, and I'm quite sure none of our fantasy will be enough to understand what we are, what will be the next thing. When you talk about artificial intelligence in future, of course, we have to come back to the driving topic of today, the COVID-19. If you look at the vaccine development, this vaccine development within not even 1 year, that was only possible because we have artificial intelligence, because we have big data. Before, we would have gone to a lab and testing, and we made 10,000 tests, and only 1 out of the 10,000 would have been successful. Then we would have gone in a study, and then it would take usually the years. But the mRNA vaccines, they are designed because they have already the knowledge how a certain part of the DNA or how a certain RNA will react on other chemicals. So the computer was there and was simulating actually what would be the right sequence to defeat or to trigger the T cell immunity in the human body. And that made it so fast. So artificial intelligence is already everywhere, and it will adopt itself to the necessity of our daily life.
So I think you don't see, because my question was more about the risks, and I completely am with you with most of the things, but on the risks, because for instance, on the risks, I think definitely there's a dystopian parallel right now world that we are creating. So you're much more positive. I think you are the first person I interviewed that is very much more positive than negative. But because even me, for instance, if I look at AI, I see massive risks. I see a dystopian, and I see, for instance, what happened in the last 4 years, especially with fake news, with the complete disruption of countries, and in some cases almost to wars, provoked by things that are very basic digital manipulation. We have cases like Cambridge Analytica. I want to touch that because I know that you're an expert as well in cloud computing. And for us, if you look at cybersecurity, if you look at the quantity of cyber hackings that exist, data protection issues and stuff like that, there's as well a very dark side to technology. So I want to just touch a bit that, bearing in mind your capacity and as well 360 holistic capacity to look at different technologies.
Yeah. Okay, I understand what you're going to. Okay, I'm not so much looking on the risk, because the risk I see currently relatively limited. First of all, I still have to mention, we just talk about weak AI, not about strong AI. Strong AI would be rebuilding humans, and that is, I don't see within the next 100 years that something like this is going to come. We talk about using artificial intelligence to assist what we humans do. And you mentioned the point with cybersecurity. Well, cybersecurity, all the attacks that we had in the last years, including the Cambridge Analytica social media campaign to manipulate elections and all these kind of things. These were actions done by humans who used the computer as a tool. And it was the famous black powder effect when in the 13th century, the black powder came to Europe from China. Those who had black powder, they could use it to fight better wars because black powder and the rifle was better than a sword. But on the other side, this is a very, very temporary advantage. If I use artificial intelligence to defend my computer, to protect my systems, I'm on a level playing field again. So these attacks that happen is only surprise attacks, and it's always, that is how criminals work. Criminals use the weakness of their victims, but the weakness changes permanently, so they permanently look for some holes. But the if you use artificial intelligence to avoid these cyber attacks, and that is what most already do. You just might have heard that the German, the European police, Europol, had now stopped cyber attacks by some, I think it was some virus who is going to leak information, especially from governments. And it was a common effort of the European police, of Europol, and at the same time, they were using, of course, a lot of artificial intelligence to track them all down. So they just have to take the same weapons again. So I see the risk is like a knife is a dangerous tool, but it is also extremely helpful if I want to work in the kitchen with it. So everything that is helpful has a risk, and it's up to us to avoid the risk by being careful in certain areas, but also using the same technology that a criminal would use.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it, but I think, so I want to touch a bit more of this because you are a futurist as well, and I like that you're very positive. Let's say, if you look at the last book, which I completely subscribe, from Yuval Noah Harari, one of the things he talks is about that the next decade, and this is happening already. So we have a couple of big corporations that have more data and more information than most of the countries in the planet. They have more capacity in terms of financial data, and they've been growing at an exponential rate more than anything in the planet. At the same time, so that's a bit of a paradox. In one hand, we have all these fantastic things that you mentioned that I completely subscribe. In the other hand, we have a big challenge. Are we going to be looking at evolving with all this data, with all these changes in society? And you can have or a dystopic version of this that can very easily happen, because the point is that let's say when you say a knife or even some things with a knife, for instance, this week actually particularly is quite interesting. We are in, for the people seeing us in the future, we are in January, end of January 2021. But for instance, this week there was a couple of things actually in the last couple of weeks, but this week in particular, that actually a kind of a think tank and actually an organization in the US, which Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google and actually one of the most important people in technology in the world, said that we have to let AI make a decision in terms of weapons and in terms of deciding about if they can kill or not kill humans. That is something that was proposed to the US in an official notification. The other thing was that the French army proposed, this was a couple of weeks ago, I think end of 2019, they proposed, this is public news, that a new engineering weapons for humans. This was proposed by the French military. So we are already talking about exponential augment our human engineering. And we are talking as well about this. And like you mentioned, we are in very mild or very low AI, let's put it that way. Well, actually no AI, mostly what we have is machine learning. So I just want to touch this a bit more because I'm a bit provocative. And it's good that you push in the positive, because I think I would like to hear that part, especially as a futurist and as a way to take forward on this level. Yeah.
Well, okay, two replies on this one. So first of all, what the former Google had actually said, that we'll have to have AI to make decisions. Well, this is natural. If you let AI to drive a car autonomously, then I have also to tell the car actually what happens if he is in a dilemma. So we are still at the Asimov's theorem actually. Should I abide the rules of my master, or should I protect the life of others? So this is a ethical and philosophical question, and definitely if I have a computer who has to make decisions, and there will be situations where the decision has to be a balance between two values, and that is what we humans do as well. And there is no logic to say, do I protect my life, or do I protect the life of the child that I'm just going to hit? So that is definitely one thing. When he said, when we say that we need maybe computers or AI to decide how a war attack has to take place, then this is a hypocrite message, because that is what they already do. And this is humans who told them to let the AI decide which target to attack. Since we have unmanned missiles for more than 2 decades already, and you can be sure that these missiles make their decisions on some very, would say, in a human point of view, unethical grounds. So if you say this, then they are true, but actually, especially the military say we need to have computers to make these decisions, and they're telling us something just to prepare us that, okay, now we have it, but they already have it. And it's just more or less to how to tell the truth to the public. Your first question, I think, or your first argument, I find much more worth really discussing in the end is we have these big companies who have so many data, like the Facebook, or also Google or Amazon. The problem is not that they have so many data. The problem is that they have this data in private. They are the only ones who can use it and they can market it. But data is public. That is and currently it's the problem of our governments in the world, that they have problems in making data public. And they call it data protection acts and whatever they call it, but in the end, it is the devil they brought into their own bedroom. Because that data protection act hinders them to give everybody the access to the same data what Facebook already has. So we need to really educate more the people who make laws, especially when it comes to computer science. Because if you look at the lawmakers in the United States, the lawmakers in Europe, in any parliament, these are old people. Half of them are not even able to configure their own smartphone. If they change from iPhone to Android, they are helpless. They go to their grandchildren and ask them, "Can you configure my Android phone now and get all the data from the iPhone to Android?" And the 10-year-old boy or girl will say, "Okay, I can do it for you," but the old people cannot. but those people are making decisions related to our future and our IT future. So I see it much more a problem that we are still not, we are giving away our guns and let them to Facebook and Google. So my point is quite clear. We have to make laws worldwide that data is generally public and that everybody who has an ethical interest to use the data can use the data and can use it for free. The USA has this. They have their amendment that says that every data that is not explicitly classified has to be published. That is why we have Google Maps, because Google did not make the maps. No, they went to the CIA database and just take all the data from the CIA database and put a nice surface on it, what they called Google Maps. It is not their data. They took the public data and made a product out of it. That makes sense. Everybody can do this. But what Facebook does, collecting the data and not giving them back for free in the open source, that is an issue.
I like the way you put it. Very scientific and very, but I think very solid as well. I think it, and I think that's, so that it's just one, I know we're going to wrap up in a while. It's been almost past 1 hour, but one question I want, and I think especially for people listening to us around the world. So as a technologist that has been working with a lot of governments, I know that Germany has very strict rules on data and very focused on respecting data privacy and the way people looking at data. So can you tell us about this? Because I think that touches, I think, your probably more positive vision on society and data than probably the rest of people. Even me, I'm a bit not so positive as you, but I would like to touch that, especially how we see German looking at these things.
You know, the old adage that we know for probably a couple of 1,000 years is that the way to hell is plastered with good intentions. And the Data Privacy Act has a good intention, but it was completely badly woven. That is, this act is like you're going to run in the Olympic Games and want to get the gold medal, but then you tell your runners, you are not allowed to wear running shoes because this is for this and this reason, they are not good. No, the Data Privacy Act that exists, especially in Europe, is counterproductive to what they want to. It's not protecting anything, but it takes the weapons away from everybody and gives even more power to the big concerns who care. Well, you know what I meant, who care, do not care about. No, and if I say Facebook, I permanently say Facebook on this one. Facebook is even, when we spoke about risks, I don't see Facebook as an unethical company. It's not that they're deliberately abusing the data, what they have. I see Facebook as a company who has completely lost control over their own data. They don't know what data they have and they don't know what their data is doing. They sell here and there some of their data, but they are not the ones who can control data. Their system is so uncontrollable that here we have a risk, and here we would probably need some artificial intelligence, but built from the outside to clean up the house and clean up the mess, what they have.
That's a good point. But coming back to German, so I know that just, can you just highlight, because you have quite a lot of expertise working in the European Union and German, just some of the ideas how German has been tackling the way of data and respect towards data, because I think that's an important thing for people, because a lot of people have no conscience about that, and I think German on that level is a great example.
Well, there is a European Data Privacy Act, and this is actually that basically everybody who wants to store data in an electronic media about you, they have to get the explicit consent of the person they are storing the data of. So, and this is on one side not practical, So now you have to mail out everybody, okay, I'm storing your address data because I want to ship out some goods to you because you're my customer, but you first have to ask your customer, can I store your address, or I have to throw it away, or have to print it out on paper, then it's allowed. But if I store it on my hard drive, it's not allowed. So the whole, the law is, in my sense, they wanted to do something good, but it is completely away from reality, and it's just a bureaucratic monster that does not protect privacy, and it does not help the people, but it's a big burden for especially smaller companies who need the computers. So that's so. If you want to ask what the Germans did, I tell you, in my opinion, nothing.
So you're not happy with
something? No, absolutely
not. It's interesting
not,
to hear that from you. So.
Absolutely, it's trash. It's trash. Say it, please. I say it is trash. What they have constructed there, the knitwear is trash.
Wow. So I think it's a very strong position. It's interesting to hear that. So moving forward in terms of, and I think, well, that is the statement. I'm not going more onto that. It's a very clear statement. So I think my last question, and I think we can wrap up 2 questions that I had here, because I know that we passed time and I want to be conscious of your time. So with COVID-19, we've been having an acceleration of digital transformation. And in some ways, there's a lot of ways to redesign society. So you are as well a futurist that has been looking at a lot of areas, like you mentioned, Industry 4.0, Agriculture 4.0, you mentioned AI, you mentioned IoT, you mentioned cloud computing, a lot of areas you've been working. So what are your visions for the present and future, especially when it comes to society? And you touched the positive vision, which is great, but where can we use some of these things? And you mentioned on the agriculture, but I would like to look at other things. So some of the trends that you think are key for solving some of the problems that we have right now.
Well, we're using it already in the COVID-19 crisis in healthcare without artificial intelligence. As I mentioned, the vaccine would not be here. So we are trying to use all these data to improve it. And if the Privacy Act in Germany would not put so much burden, we would probably also have a wonderful tracking of the people regarding the COVID-19 disease. But now we have an app that is not working because you have to type your into the app where you have been. If I ask Google, Google knows better. First, I have to go to Google to look where I've been, and now I have to type into the app. So in future, actually, the technology is there. We can help it in healthcare. We can use it in agriculture, and especially it will also help us in the smart living way. But there will not be the big bangs. No, that it will very gradual. Like we now use the smartphones, and nobody invented the smartphone in this sense. It was there, and it became not even, I would not even say a hype. It was just because it was useful, it was practical, the people liked it, and so it came to a success. So the next trends will also be something that will be more or less helpful. Maybe it's the next generation of kitchen machine who is cooking completely on itself, but I think this already exists. So that is more what happened. I'm not saying that there will be big bangs. The real big areas where it will happen is definitely in mobility and in agriculture, because that is currently the areas that are completely under, where technology is underused. Well, we have much more possibilities in using now today's technology already. So it's more in applying what we already have rather than inventing much more things.
I think it's a great way, and actually very summary, but as well very powerful, putting a very concise way of looking at technology in a very optimistic way. I like that actually, because I've been having sometimes more doom, and especially looking at the media, we tend to go to the other areas. I don't know if you want to just highlight yeah, go ahead.
I would actually like to have a kind of a discussion maybe with a 20-year-old. person. Exactly this discussion in a dialogue, because we need to have the few of these people of the next generation. Those who
It's in
start
my
in their
list.
life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's in my list to interview a couple of very young people, and I have as well children, but I understand what you mean. I appreciate it, and I think it's very important. And I think I like that you put it in a very practical way, because sometimes we tend to go in the buzzwords and forget the reality, and as well how to do that. So fantastic. I don't know if you want to just highlight where people can find about your work, or even some areas of your work that you want to highlight for people listening to us. Of course, we discussed a lot of different things. It's been more than 1 hour, but I want more to touch the areas that I think you think are more relevant for you.
Well, what shall I say, actually? If you visit my website, thelogosworld.de, or if you visit the50experts.com, you will get, let's say, the current trends, and Google my name and you find a lot.
Okay.
Well.
Very good. So just one thing I want to
or
touch.
ask
So
Dinis.
Yeah, no, completely. So on education side, that part I want to just, we didn't touch that. Just if you want to just a couple of notes on the work you've been doing, coaching and education, and you touched the 20 years old, so education is the most important thing. So it's just, I know that you're doing fantastic work on that level, just to wrap up.
Well, education, that is definitely a baby, because every project starts with education. Education first, that is the rule, what you have to do. So whenever you want to do a change and you want to improve something, you first have to educate the people. If you go on a ship, everybody of the crew on the ship has been trained. If you start to play a football game, you practice before. You're not going to play the game just and not doing anything. So you have to practice and to work together and find out the common work style. So that is one thing, and we are planning to have especially an education incubator hub in Africa, mainly also for the agriculture 4.0, and it should serve three targets. First of all, it should teach farmers in the rural areas, especially those who are not speaking one of the major languages. If I go on Coursera or on academia.edu and all courses are in English or in French, this is nice. But if I go to a farmer in Cameroon, they speak 220 languages in the country, official ones. I don't know how many dialects there. In India, we have 30 different languages. And even if some people believe that the people speak English there, no, it's only a small part, the better educated ones. But the farmers definitely do not speak English. And they also do not speak Hindi often. If they come from Bengal or if they come from Tamil, they speak their own language, which is completely different from Hindu. So we have to get an education to people who don't speak one of the major languages, and we have to educate the people in these places where they are. A big problem in Africa is that the people, if they want to, the young people, they migrate to the big cities because they see a good chance to get a better life there. But that is not good for the big cities, and it's not good for the young people. We need to keep the people in the places where they're born and where they are. They have to stay in the villages. So we have to educate them and have to show them what they can do in the villages. So this is target number one of our education. The second one is this education hub should actually not do training himself in masses, because academies and schools exist enough. But these schools and the teachers and the professors, they lack of media. They need teaching materials, especially when you teach them in a language that the students do not speak English. Then you have to have visual media. You have to have small clips, small videos, or small games where the students can experiment. So we need to build a gaming platform that teaches the people the necessity, what they need in their future life. And the third element of this education is that we give the young entrepreneurs, the startups, those who have learned, the students, an incubator facility where they can actually concentrate in inventing new ideas, and we help them to find the financing, we help them to do the marketing, and we help them to get all this annoying bureaucracy around to get this done easily for them, so that they do not have to lose and spend their time on things that they are not don't have a capacity in. So the three things is teaching the people in rural areas in a language that they understand. Secondly, creating media for the universities and the academies that exist. And third times, give the startups a very, very good comfort zone where they can develop ideas and really become the champions of the future. Everything concentrates on the young, because if the young is not only the clients of the future, they are also the makers of the future.
Amazing. So I think it's a great way, and it's a very inspiring way. Thank you so much. I think just one note as well for people listening to us, of course, Axel is quite humble, but he has as well a couple of books on SAP that are in Amazon, available in multiple places as well. And a couple of other things, definitely just search the name. We'll put a lot of links around the interview. Axel, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate this vote of confidence and as well of peace and inspiration, and actually very positive as well, that I've been, especially I had a couple of interviews that were much more, and some more people much more negative. So it's good to see a very good look at the future and the present. Thank you.
Take it like Charlie Chaplin. Smile, and the world will smile back.
I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you very much, Dinis. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Good day.